What is going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Reddit Gold Standard podcast. My name is Zach Hernandez, and as always, I'm joined with my guy Mike Andrews of Nothing But Niners. Matt, our co-host Matt Llewellyn, might join us if he gets home in time, but if not, we'll hold down the fort for him, just like Matt and Mike held down the fort for me on Thursday night. I have emerged from my sickness cocoon. I didn't test for COVID, but I'm going to go ahead and assume I had COVID. It was either that or one of the worst colds I've ever had. I had tests up in my drawer, but I didn't really think about it. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. I was just kind of sick at home anyway. So I am back. I have my voice back, and I'm ready to talk some 49ers. Mike, how you doing tonight?
I am good, man. It is a fantastic night to be here, man. We got some good boxing. There's UFC, and you guys get to listen to us talk Niners while you put all that on in the background. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get down to it. And I'm glad to hear that you're feeling better as well, man. It's really, really good to hear. I can actually hear your voice is off just a little bit still. I can still hear it a little bit.
Yeah, it is. I'm still pretty congested, but that's all right. I'm happy to be back, and I'm ready to talk some Niners. We got a great one for you guys tonight, so make sure you hit like and subscribe to both YouTube channels. If you're watching on X, make sure you hit like and repost the stream. If you're watching on Instagram, make sure you like that live stream. Or Twitch, wherever you're at, like and subscribe. We got all these avenues out there, so make sure you're following both 49ers Hive and Nothing But Niners on all of them, so you don't miss a thing 49ers related. Mike, we got a good game tomorrow morning. 49ers, I'm sure everybody knows by now. You've heard the stat. They haven't won there since like 1992 or some ridiculous year. Sam Darnold is quarterbacking the Minnesota Vikings. They did draft J.J. McCarthy. However, he went down, or he had to have that meniscus surgery on his knee in the offseason, so he's out for the entire year. Sam Darnold lit up the New York Giants in week one, and I have an article here saying that he believes his time with the 49ers will benefit them. He said, quote, "Yeah, I think just seeing them every day, I think it definitely helps. Just experience, being able to see the defense, but I'm sure they'll have some different things. But again, like I said, I'm really excited for the opportunity." What do you expect from Sam Darnold, Mike? Does he scare you? Do you think his experience in this offense will benefit him tomorrow morning?
No, I do not, man. If I got to be completely honest with you, I think the Niners have the cards, right? The one good thing about this team is they learn the strengths, tendencies, and weaknesses of their opponents very, very well. This has always been a very tightly run ship when it comes to defensive game plans and all. And then what better way to learn an opposing quarterback's strengths and weaknesses than having them in camp for over a year? Right. I mean, I think the Niners actually get the one up here. I mean, we even heard the likes of Llewellyn saying that he has a special relationship with Sam Darnold, right? He likes throwing to him. So this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be an absolute flip of what we saw last week, where Aaron Rodgers almost exclusively threw to the left or the right side of the defense. If you look at Sam Darnold's passing chart, you'll see it's almost the opposite. So he did spread it out a little bit more. He wasn't afraid to take a couple of shots downfield, but it's almost the opposite. So this is going to be a very good test for the 49ers defense. Get to mix it up. Good contrast between weeks 1 and 2.
Agreed. Yeah. So Darnold had 7 receivers with 2 or more catches. So that is impressive. He did spread the ball around. But I guess lucky for the 49ers, the Vikings will be without Jordan Addison tomorrow morning. He is ruled out. And I do have that video from Lenore. Let's play it here because I thought it was just classic Diamador Lenore. Let me make sure the screens are correct. You guys can actually see it. All right, let's play this baby. Courtesy of KNBR.
I think I win that for sure. I believe I win because, me and Sam, we didn't have this connection. We like to throw the ball together. So this week coming, we know it. But I know he's a talented player, and he's gonna come ready to work. I know how he prepared. He gave us great looks. When he played here with us. Just taking over the scout team, he was throwing dimes. So I know it's gonna have to be tight, sticky covers.
Classic Lenore. I think he's going to have a big game. Did you see that? By the way, I wasn't able to join the recap show for the Jets game. Did you see Aaron Rodgers' pass chart? How he just completely ignored Charvarius Ward?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Lenore
it
held
was
up.
all one side of the field and just nothing doing on the other side. It was absolutely insane. So that's why I think that this is a very good test. The Niners let them stay on their respective sides. You know what I mean? And they just played their style of defense, and I think it's going to bode well again. Another good test here coming. I know you mentioned the absence of Addison, who was a guy that kind of, made his name against the Niners. He kind of cooked us, last year as a rookie. So now it's like, all right, he's not there. Let's see what we can do with Jetta's out there. But the Niners are without a star player also.
That's right.
That news broke today. I don't know if you want to get to it later or now.
Let's do it right now, yeah. Let's do it right now. Obviously, news hit this morning. Christian McCaffrey placed on IR, has to miss a minimum of 4 games. Tomorrow's game does count. We'll get into it after this, whether or not they should have done this to start the season, whether or not, whatever that is, we'll get into that later. So that is the only player that is out for tomorrow. I know Juwan Jennings had his ankle injured in that hip drop tackle. That wasn't called, by the way, Monday night, but he is fine. He's off the injury report. Whereas for the Vikings, aforementioned Jordan Addison is out with an ankle injury. Harrison Smith, safety, is questionable with a hip injury. Offensive tackle Brian O'Neill is questionable with an elbow injury. And guard Ed Ingram is questionable with a tricep injury. So other than that, relatively healthy on both sides. But those are 2 big absences for the 49ers and Vikings in their starting running back and one of their starting receivers. But that leads me to ask you this, Mike. Like I said, why did the 49ers mess up in not starting the season with McCaffrey on IR and already having 1 game contributing to that 4-game minimum? He could have been halfway through it. Or do you think maybe just things changed?
I think the Niners. What exactly is your question? Because I want to make sure I'm answering your question.
By not doing it week 1, like what was the point of waiting till week 2 to put him on IR if this injury's consisted since July or whatever the month may be that this happened?
So I do think that there was a point to it, and that's what makes it kind of hard to answer your question. So I don't want you to think I'm kind of skating it, right? Like, they should have done it. Yes, they should have done it. So he could have come back a week sooner. However, I think they didn't do it because they wanted to catch the Jets off guard. I think they were well aware. He's barely been practicing. He's been no contact all practices. And then they didn't report the what is it called? The Achilles and calf, the inflammation. There's a word that
tendonitis.
Tendonitis, yeah, there you go. Achilles tendonitis until after the game. Well, he didn't play in the game, so what even made him get looked at? Which means he got looked at before then. So they just didn't do it. I think it was a little bit more of a competitive advantage, playing the role, so to speak, the competitive advantage type of thing. So I think they didn't do it for a reason, gamesmanship, let's call it. But that I also do think that they could have done it earlier to avoid this.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to speak on this on the last show. I don't know if you guys got into it, but the whole stupid controversy, right? Because that's what kind of is related to this. When after the Monday Night Football game, I'm forgetting the reporter's name, but she goes up to Jordan Mason. First question: when did you find out you were starting? And he says Friday. And all of a sudden, people are like, "Oh, this is a huge deal. The 49ers should be investigated. They're going to be fined. They held out all this information." For some reason, people conflated Jordan Mason knowing he's starting and apparently the 49ers knowing Christian McCaffrey would be out. I don't think these are the same things at all. Jordan Mason could very well have started the game with Christian McCaffrey playing limited snaps, which I imagine is what they thought was going to happen with his injury. They would have kind of kept him limited, used him in very specific situations. Turns out he had a setback Monday afternoon and they called him out. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, while we're on it, like, let's get some of your thoughts on the game also. I know that we already did the recap game episode, but we haven't heard from you yet. So I'm not opposed to you running through and sharing some of your thoughts, maybe who stood out to you and all that on both sides of the ball and all.
Well, I was really impressed by the lack of rust in a way, which is going to sound funny, right? Because they did, 8 straight scoring drive, 6 of which were field goals. But I think that they were still really capable of just getting right back into the flow of things. Purdy looked extremely comfortable. This was one of Purdy's best games, in my opinion. There were maybe 2 questionable decisions in the third quarter where he had that 2 or 3 pass streak of that was kind of like, I don't know about that one. Oh, that could have been picked. He had that like overthrow to Juice and then throwing to double coverage where Saubert was down the seam where he had Mason free in the flat for a first down. But other than that, I was extremely impressed by Purdy. And I think that pass that he had later in the game to Ayuk in the corner of the end zone, if Ayuk catches that, I mean, we have a whole have a whole different opinion on Purdy's performance Monday night. I
Even
think
Ayuk's.
Well, wait, what do you mean?
If Ayuk catches that, they think differently about both of those guys.
Exactly, yeah. So the narrative changes, and that's, by the way, second time Ayuk has dropped a dime from Purdy in the corner of the end zone. Same quarter, I think, but that's neither here nor there. I was impressed by Purdy. Obviously, the rookie Dominic Pooney looked amazing. He looked really good. Trent's always going to be great, right? He's Trent, but just his ability to play every snap after not really participating or not participating at all in the preseason was really impressive. And of course, Jordan Mason, I mean, that goes without saying. The kid had 23 carries for 147 yards, something crazy like that. Could have had 2 touchdowns. They called a bullshit block or holding on Debo, brought one back. But I was really impressed. And on defense, obviously Fred Warner played like a man with his hair on fire. He out there looking like he's running 2 times faster than anybody else. He was impressive. Ward and Lenore were impressive. Malik Collins, what a dog, man. What a dog. I saw that dude so many times just completely throw the opposing offensive lineman off and make the play. Really excited to have him. I think the 49ers defensive line took a step up from last year. The run defense looked great. And while I'm at it, shout out to Nick Sorensen. I think he made some improvements during the game, which we don't really see. Adjustments, I should say, not improvements. And I think that he coached a really good game. There was the third drive, I believe, because the second one was the forced fumble. But the third drive for the Jets, where Aaron Rodgers drives them down the field, converting on like 3 or 4 third down passes, all to Wilson, by the way. And they get in the touchdown. They get in the end zone, score the touchdown with the Breece Hall run. And we never saw any of that after that. Sorensen was like, okay, we're not doing that anymore. We're getting shredded by the zone defense. Wilson's just finding the spot. Let's change it up. And I was really impressed by his ability to do that. And afterwards, they asked Fred Warner about it, what he thought of Sorensen's coaching debut. And he said, flawless game, couldn't have asked for a better performance. And I think that was just like an immediate 180 from what we saw with them and Steve Wilks. Obviously, they didn't badmouth Wilks, but there's that kind of infamous picture in the locker room of all of them kind of looking annoyed up at Steve Wilks as he's talking. And that's not the case now. I think Sorensen demands their attention and respect. And I think they're on mutual, terms now, or what's the word I'm looking for? They respect each other, and therefore it works into their professional environment, however you want to say it. But I was impressed by Sorensen, Collins, Pooney, Mason, Purdy. It was interesting to see Llewellyn finish as the leading receiver, but I guess that doesn't really surprise me too much, given that Debo was used more in the running game and Ayuk was extremely rusty. I would have liked to see Kittle maybe a little more involved, but I'm hoping that without CMC for at least the next 4 games, that forces Kyle to go back to his other all-pros, like it's not just – it seems like we get one per game going off where we should be using all of them. What were your – I mean, I know you shared your thoughts already, but I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to what I said.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what you said. I like the defensive line. I think they got a lot of constant pressure on Aaron Rodgers. It was good to see Debo and Floyd out there doing their thing. And I think this week we're going to see a lot good from the guys on the inside. More Collins, Hargrave, those guys are going to be out there doing their things as well. So it's going to be a really, really good it's going to be a really good matchup. But I was happy with the defense overall. We didn't get to see much from the safeties because there weren't a lot of deep shots down the field.
Right.
So it was kind of hard to evaluate those guys. I know people are questioning whether or not Huff is going to play. I wouldn't rush him back if I'm the Niners. I don't think Sam Darnold's going to take a ton of shots downfield either. The one deep shot that Aaron Rodgers did get in that game was on the free play, where I think the Niners defense just thought the play was going to be whistled dead, but the league gives Aaron Rodgers those kind of calls all the time.
Nobody else would have that benefit. It would have been blown dead immediately for any other quarterback. There was like a solid 2-second pause where everybody was like, and then they just let him keep playing. So it was unfortunate. By the way,
and sometimes
Go ahead.
I was going to say, sometimes I wish like the Niners would just go ahead and let the play continue and then decline the penalty also. Like, just because the ref threw the thing, and like you can clearly keep playing if you want to, right? Like, let the play go and then get the free yards and decline the penalty. But the Niners play with this like code of honor, like this this rules of engagement and the art of war and all that stuff. Like, throw that shit out the window and like let these guys play ball. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, let's take advantage of some of the little gimmies and hiccups and let the rules play in our favor sometime.
It kind of reminds me of basketball when there's, and ones. I always just think, why not get up and smack the shit out of the ball? Like, don't allow for the and one. Obviously, if you get a goaltending, that's different. But it's like, why are we standing here after the whistle waiting for the ball to go in the net? Just smack that shit out of the air, dude. You don't got to stop playing. But I wanted to ask Steve-O. I'm not sure if you're saying that I'm critiquing Purdy for having 2 passes in a row. I was just saying those are the 2 passes that I think were questionable decisions, not that the fact that they passed it 2 times in a row. And also, I don't think anybody's critiquing a double-digit lead unless you're talking about something in the chat that I'm not seeing. But we're just going over the game and what we thought. Yeah, by the way, Purdy 30 back on day 1, even with only capitalizing on 2 of the scoring drives, getting in the end zone. And how did I forget? Shout out Jake Moody, baby. 6 for 6, or was it 5 for 5?
Yeah.
Right? 5 for 5.
No, 6 for 6.
6 for 6. Right. Yeah. That's right. 6 for 6. So shout out to Moody. That one that hit the end zone or hit the upright still went in. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Yep.
All of his kicks that were deep had plenty of distance to spare. I mean, he was absolutely on fire. Absolutely on fire. Really, really good to see the guy come in to a second year with that kind of confidence, the team having that kind of confidence in him. It was just phenomenal, man. I absolutely can't wait. So, all right. I mean, that's all I got on the last game. I won't, waste a lot of time on that one, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on it because again, we didn't get to hear from you. And the special teams coverage units were great as well. That was something I was concerned with. And they did good on the punt coverage and everything. So it was really good.
Kenny says, unfortunately, none of those kicks were under any pressure. You're not going to get too much in week 1 aside from a game winner. So I'm not too upset with it. I think this time of the year, it's more about building the confidence, getting in a rhythm. You remember last year against the Steelers to start the season where the first kick of the year, the Steelers just rushed the side and were clearly off sides to try and block the kick. Tomlin didn't care. And I think that we talked about it then, like, that could have easily have gotten into his headspace if he had that kick block. And then every kick after that, he's thinking, shit, are they going to come across the line? Is it going to get called? Wasn't an issue.
That's kind of the genius behind a Mike Tomlin, right? Like, you're going up against a rookie in his first NFL attempt. You send the house. I would have done the same exact thing. I would talk to my special teams coordinators, his first attempt. I don't care if it's an extra point. Whatever their first attempt is, you send the house at this kid. And you make him as nervous as possible. I would have done the same thing. Phenomenal.
Agreed. And I see people wishing Renardo Green got some looks over Yadam. It's week 1, guys. They're gonna ease him in. They're gonna rotate them and eventually get Green more looks. Yadam is a very solid vet. I'm happy with. If he's the 49ers' third quarterback, that's a solid top 3 in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think they would have if Rodgers played the fourth quarter or more into the fourth quarter, I should say. Like, if it was real, like, all right, let's see. All right, they start rotating some of our starters on defense out. But, we were where we were.
Yeah. All right, so for tomorrow's game, we talked about Sam Darnold. People are trying to bring last year's Monday Night Football game as a sort of measuring stick or a reference point for what to expect tomorrow. These teams are not only completely different. I mean, the 49ers, their backup quarterback is now starting for the Vikings, just to talk about how different they are. Kirk is in Atlanta hobbling around because his Achilles isn't fully healed yet. How much, I guess I should say, from last year do you take to put towards tomorrow as far as what to expect, how to attack the Vikings, if any?
Yeah, I think you're going to have to throw all of that out the window. The Vikings defense is a different look now. And the Vikings are going to be coming in with a lot more confidence, right? It's not so much backs up against the wall. It's not attacking a vulnerable 49ers where we were without some key players and Trent Williams and Debo and things like that, right? This is going to be a very, very different type of game. So I don't think you could look at that film or anything like that and take too much from it other than play design for the offense. Maybe play design by the defense, but play design by defense is more reactive of what our offense is doing. So you even got to throw that out the window. You just got to go out there and play your brand of football, and we're going to have to see what happens.
I agree. The one thing that I think they can take away is Brian Flores and kind of just his coaching style. He's coaching that Vikings defense. He's always kind of had a, 49ers throwback. Kyle Shanahan has not had fared well against Brian Flores. He's kind of that type of Spagnuolo, Jim Schwartz, like in that category of DCs that fare well against Kyle Shanahan. How concerned are you for Kyle's matchup against Flores?
I'm not overly concerned. Here's the good thing. Even as Niner fans, we don't quite know what to expect from this offense, right? Like I'm hoping that we see a lot more Isaac Garindo as the spellback for Mason instead of Debo. And like you said, we kind of get back to it so we can mix it up a little bit more. And, this is going to be something that Kyle has an opportunity to make a statement. Like, I understand that we don't have the best running back in the NFL out here for us, but we're going to be just fine without him. This is Kyle's opportunity to say my offense isn't dependent on one player. This is Kyle's opportunity to say that, Christian McCaffrey does not make or break the San Francisco 49ers. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, man, this is it right now, and we'll get to some of the weird predictions and all that we've seen later on. But this is Kyle's opportunity to say, yeah, pump the brakes on that, guys. I'm still Kyle Shanahan.
Right. Agreed. I think that this is a chance for the 49ers to go in there, Kyle Shanahan specifically, and prove, hey, I get he's a great DC. I get he's had my number previously. If a couple things go differently last year, this isn't even a conversation because the 49ers win that game pretty easily. Let's not forget about the zero blitz with like 7 seconds left before half that left Jordan Addison. That not only left him open, but Charvarius Ward should have intercepted it. Yeah. And Addison rips it out of Ward's hands. It gets into the, yada, yada, yada. We all know. And then on top of that, Purdy gets concussed going forward on a quarterback sneak. I think that game goes a lot differently if a couple things don't happen, right, which were easily preventable.
Yeah, and I want to give a good shout out really quick to my guy Daniel Garcia in the chat, just for the fact that he's boxing right now against Laura and also committed to watching the show and commenting. I think that is absolutely phenomenal. So I'm going to give you a round of applause. Daniel Garcia is also boxing right now as we speak. So kudos to you, man, and the commitment, making sure your team is still represented and you're watching the shows. I appreciate it, big dog.
By the way, we're not sponsored by MyBookie this year, but if you guys are doing any bets, Juice's over-under on catches is like always 1.5. Just always take the over on Juice. It's like free money. That dude catches at least like 2 passes a game minimum. But I would like to see him more involved. It is nice to see. Did you happen to catch, by the way, go back to the Jets game, I think it was Eric Branch, asked Kyle if that outlet pass to Use was a new play. Did you catch that? And Kyle goes, I did. You must be new here.
I was going to say, I thought that was one of the dumbest questions ever. Like, how many times have we seen Kyle Juszczyk do that? I mean, that's been it's been a staple since Juice signed here the first year of Kyle's tenure. Like, I don't even understand why that question was asked. I don't know. I'm like, Kyle, like, are you new here? And the fact that Kyle said that meant that, like, he was thinking 100 things worse than that, and that was the nicest thing that he could say to him in response. So kudos to Kyle for trying to reel it in and be a little bit respectable with answering that question. It was just like, dude, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I agree 100%. The only new thing is we now have a quarterback that could hit that. How many times do we see Juszczyk wide open and Jimmy sail it over his head or something? Yeah. So at least now the ball is falling in his arms, which, by the way, Juice even said, like, damn, I should have scored. I got tripped up on my way in. If he gets in the end zone and if IU catches that dime, then, hey, Purdy's numbers look a lot differently. But I was impressed. We had a week one of – we'll get to your question, by the way. Who is it? JD Durham. We'll get to this right now. A week one full of poor quarterback play all around the league, right? I think aside from, Baker and Derek Carr – they were the only 300-yard passers, or maybe I'm wrong about that, but I know they're only 2.
It was Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford and Baker.
The only 2 300-yard passers. It was a lot of poor quarterbacking in Monday night. We did not see that from the 49ers side, so I was impressed with that. But let's get back to tomorrow. Do you think we saw, 23 carries Monday night from Jordan Mason? Is he going to get 25 or more tomorrow morning, Mike? Seems like a lot.
I don't think so. I think that He kind of hit the sweet spot. He kind of also gave a little bit of the special sauce away at that same presser that you were talking about immediately following the game on the sideline there with the sideline reporter. He was like, I went right to Christian and said, I don't know how you do this. Like that, this is his first time. He's never had that many carries since high school. So, he said that it was a lot on his plate. Maybe he shouldn't have said that. There were a couple of things that the Niners front office kind of probably could have been upset about with him making some of those comments. And that was the other one. So I don't think that you're going to see him do that. I think they'll do a better job of mixing it up. And the good thing is, as long as they're not telegraphing what the call is, right? Like every time we saw Debo in the backfield, we knew it was going to be a handoff to Debo. Like, let's not make it that obvious. Let's do some 2-back sets, right? Let's see Mason out there with Garindo, or Mason out there even with Debo, both lined up in the backfield, just to mix it up a little bit, so you're not telegraphing what the play is going to be. Like that was pissing me off all game. It doesn't matter the success or lack of for the Debo carries. It was just like, let's mix it up some. Like, let's not make it as painfully obvious what the play is going to be here. Yeah. I just didn't like that too much.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, by the way, thank you, Nigel. He had 28 carries, not 23, like I said. And that was the most by any running back under Kyle Shanahan. You'd have to go back to 2011. Frank Gore had 28 or more carries, which is crazy, right? You think of Christian McCaffrey, you think of Raheem Mostert. Even in the NFC Championship game, apparently he didn't even have 28 carries. So it really is impressive. In his first start, Kyle trusted him enough to give him 28 carries. And Ian says, by the way, like Debo on those slant runs, maybe a little less predictable.
That's Debo's bread and butter, because let's be honest, Matt's not here to do the bashing right now, but there's not going to be much more that you're going to get from Debo right now. So he's not going to get a lot of separation if it's not a slant. So
he unfortunately just can't seem to separate. The man runs like the greased up deaf guy from Family Guy once he has the ball in his arms, but he can't separate when he's running a route. I don't understand it. He's impossible to catch once he has the ball, but it's like you can't get him the ball on these routes. So I don't know.
Well, and it makes sense because the routes have to be precise in order to get the ball to him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you gotta get open for you to get the ball. Then you can freestyle after that. If Debo was allowed to just go out there and freestyle and run whatever kind of route he wanted, I'm sure he could get some separation. But that's not how offenses work. The quarterback has to know where you're going to be to deliver the ball to you. And so that's the part where he's kind of struggling. Just get him the ball early. That's why a lot of his catches are 7 yards or less type of thing. You know what I mean? And get him the ball close, near to the line of scrimmage, and then just let him work. Like he's got a purpose in this offense. As much as people bash him for not being able to get separation, he's got a purpose in the offense, and he's really good at what he does. So we just got to take it for what it is. If you want people getting open downfield, you're going to have to depend on guys like Ayuk, and when Pearsall comes back, you'll probably get some of that from him as well. And Jennings is a guy that can get some separation. He's not going to do now he's the exact opposite of Debo, right? He can get the immediate separation and catch the ball, but he's not going to do a lot of the yak, where Debo can't get the separation, but the yak he's going to kill you on. So, and then you got Brandon Ayuk right there in the middle.
Very well said. I'm expecting more from Ayuk tomorrow. Hopefully the rust is kind of shook off. He's more involved. I expect him to be kind of the focal point of this offense, especially tomorrow. The Vikings defensive line last year did get to Purdy a good amount. Obviously, they don't have Danielle Hunter. He is in Houston, I believe. But they had a blitz rate of 50% last year. Last week, in the week one opener, they had a pressure rate of 40.8%, according to CBS Sports, is the article I have. They have the rookie Dallas Turner getting some pressure. Do you expect the 49ers offensive line to have their hands full all day against this Vikings defensive line?
I think the Jets defensive line is better than the Vikings defensive line, and I think they handled them just fine. Dominic Pooney rose to the challenge against guys like Quinnen Williams and all, so I don't expect it to be much different. I do think that because the Vikings saw how well the 49ers offensive line played, they will send some more exotic blitz packages and pressure, maybe sending more guys up the middle than what the Niners can physically block, try to get Brock Purdy to move left and right as opposed to stepping up in the pocket and delivering. But we've seen that be a strength of Brock Purdy's. When he rolls to the right, I'm very, very confident in Brock Purdy's abilities. It's just don't turn your back to the line of scrimmage, enough of that spin around type of thing and make a play. I don't want to see a lot of that, but I mean, if I'm the opposing team, if I'm Flores, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to send some of that stuff right up the middle, use some of those linebackers maybe to try to send some extra pressure, and make Brindle. And make those guards, maybe have to step up a little bit. I don't think that we're going to have Aaron Banks in this game. I don't know if he's been officially ruled out or not. But I don't know if you remember, but Burford finished the game for Banks, and he, by the way, played really well. So we're going to have to see. Playing next to Trent Williams just does something for guys, man. I mean, we remember what Lincoln Tomlinson looked like. We see what Aaron Banks looks like when he's over there. And then Burford goes over there, who went from a liability sometimes on the right side to being, A+ on the left side next to Big Trent. So I think the Niners are going to be okay on the offensive line in the straight-up matches. But they have to generate some kind of pressure if you're the Vikings. You got to figure out how to do something. And it's not going to be coming off the edge. If you're coming off the edge, you're just giving the opportunity for Brock to step up and deliver. And that's not what you want to do.
Yeah. As far as Aaron Banks, per Matt Barrows, he or Yetur Gross-Matos or Juwan Jennings, they were all full participants in Friday's practice. So I would imagine they're going to play. We finally get Gross-Matos in. I say finally. He only missed last week, but he got hurt in that final preseason game, I believe, versus the Raiders. So he will be making his debut tomorrow morning along with Banks. By the way, you mentioned Spencer Burford. He was solid on the left side. Did you happen to catch him? He was good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was good.
Yeah.
I think it was Eric Branch. I could be wrong. Somebody had a sit down kind of interview with him. Did you happen to catch that?
I did not. I only saw some clips of it. And I saw him say that, he felt natural there. It felt good to be back in his natural position and all. So that was really, really good to see / hear. Like I said, I read comments. I didn't see it. So while Zach gets that pulled up, it's good. The Niners do this thing where even in the preseason, they were talking about Parker and Hubbard, right? One guy's more comfortable playing left. The other guy's more comfortable playing right. So what did Chris Forrester decide to do? Switch them. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? If you can be comfortable, uncomfortable, then you're in a really, really good spot and you're prepared for all situations. So I do understand the madness behind it, but it gets tiring watching the team draft someone who exclusively played on one side and try to bump them somewhere else. A guy who played exclusively tackle, let's see what he can do at guard, right? If you wanted to tackle, draft a tackle. If you wanted a guard, draft a guard. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The Niners kind of try to outsmart themselves, looking for swing players and all this. They want to play like this positionless football on the offensive line and at all these different skill positions and all. Like sometimes it's okay to just get a guy to play the position that you need. So we'll see what happens. But when these players go out to the podium and say things like that, or not even to the podium, but on the record when they're saying things like that, I take it as kind of a dig to the 49ers and how they do their coaching and all that stuff. I understand exactly why they do it, but you also got to understand how these players feel and think, right? You drafted me, and I'm a really good left guard. I can bump out the tackle if you need me to play on the left side. And then it's like, wait, you want me to play right guard? Like, what? Okay, I'll try it. I'm going to do whatever you guys ask me to do. I'm a rookie. What am I going to say no? Am I going to protest? I want to make the roster, right? So I'm going to go and do whatever you're asking me to do. It doesn't mean I'm comfortable at it. Oh, I had a good game. Cool. But I was nervous and shit the whole time. Like, don't make these guys sit there and overthink, So here you go. There it is right there.
Yeah. So this is the article I was talking about. This is from the San Francisco Chronicle and Eric Branch, and it was titled "Why 49ers Spencer Burford Calls the Super Bowl block he missed in overtime a blessing and a curse." I thought this was a really good article going in depth about Burford.
Even that headline is grabbing.
Yeah.
Send this to me because I want to read this.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Branch, I'll put it in the chat and I'll send it to you. Here it is in the chat.
I mean, that headline by itself would make me read this whole thing, because that was he called it a blessing and a curse. Like, motherfucker, you going to call that a blessing? Like, dude, you lost us a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, that is an insane statement to make. So I got to read this article.
It reads, I'll read some of it for you guys. For days, Spencer Burford didn't have an appetite, and for months, he didn't feel joy. The San Francisco 49ers guard's worst moment on the field, his missed blocking assignment in overtime of Super Bowl is at 58 in February, led to his worst moments off it. The San Antonio native didn't eat for 2 to 3 days after the game, shut himself off from friends and family, and returned to Texas shortly after his final exit interview, hoping distance could dull the pain. He was away from football, 1,700 miles removed from the 49ers facility, but stuck in the same place. He couldn't create separation from 3rd and 4 from the Chiefs' 9-yard line with all-pro defensive tackle Chris Jones lined up between him and right tackle Colton McKivitz. He said, "That's the lowest I've been in my life. You get ridiculed and it's really hard. It took a long time. You try to get over something, but that was the first time I felt a state of depression. It was a blessing and a curse at the same time. Sometimes I still have flashbacks or somebody will bring it up, but I try to let that live in the past." Burford is eager to move forward, but he agreed to discuss the fallout from his missed assignment for the first time Wednesday, the 7-month anniversary of the 49ers' 25-22 loss. He didn't misspeak when he called it a blessing. The adversity that brought him to his knees has strengthened his faith and given him a greater appreciation for the many people in his life who love and support him, regardless. And he has also grown about 7 years in the past 7 months. He was 23, a 4th-round pick, 2 years removed from his final season in relative obscurity at Texas San Antonio, when he made a mistake on the NFL's biggest stage. He turned to his left at the snap instead of blocking Jones, who wasn't touched before his instant pressure on quarterback Brock Purdy forced a throwaway. Purdy had no time to locate one of the 2 wide-open receivers, Jawan Jennings at the 2-yard line and Brandon Ayuk in the end zone. The 49ers settled for a field goal. The Chiefs answered with a game-winning touchdown, and Burford's offseason of despair began. On Wednesday, however, Burford, speaking softly while sitting at his locker, brightened while discussing his resolve. His depression eventually lifted, giving way to determination to not let that moment define him. "It just lit a different fire underneath me," Burford said. "It gave me an opportunity to be like, I can handle anything that's thrown at me at this point. I've lost at the highest level and dealt with all the negativity that came with it. I got over the depression and the state of mind I was in, and I'm just trying to move forward with be the best player that I can be at this point. I'm definitely not the same player I was. I changed a lot, and I've matured a lot in a lot of ways." Burford, his teammates, and coaches knew what happened on that 3rd and 4. And so did everyone else the morning after the game. Guard John Feliciano, who suffered an elbow injury in the 3rd quarter and was replaced by Burford, responded to a fan, who posted a video of the play on social media and blamed McKivitz for failing to block Jones. Feliciano's defense of McKivitz made it clear Burford was at fault. Burford wrote to Feliciano that afternoon, "Sheesh, I opened up my app to this. Get well soon, bro." Feliciano responded with an apology, but the incident created headlines and made Burford the target of online vitriol. And then it kind of goes into the negative comments. Burford said, "Most people look at us as individuals who get paid a lot of money, who play the game. We're still human. We still have the same feelings y'all feel. We still think the same things y'all think. We're not just objects." They interviewed offensive line coach Chris Forster. He said the social media thing wears on all of them, and it's hard because I don't care how much you get paid. When people are attacking you personally, it's personal. Even though it's your job, I try to keep it that way with Burford. This is your job. You're blessed. You have a great profession, and you screwed up, and now it's what you do with everything going forward. Forster added, "The NFL is about what you do once you get beat. It's what you do once you get your butt kicked. It's what you do once you fail that determines your NFL career." Burford began feeling lighter when OTA practices began in May. For him, the on-field work signaled a new chapter. The 2024 season was serving as a symbolic turning of the page. Forrester noticed Burford was still struggling when the 49ers reported for the offseason program in April. You could tell it was how everyone is going to receive me back in the room when we've been gone for 3 months and when he thought he cost us the game. Forrester said it wasn't all his fault. He had a bad play in the game with a lot of bad plays. So I think there was a sense of, do they still look at me this way? For his part, Purdy, a fellow member of the 2022 rookie class, said the mistake hasn't changed their relationship. "We talk all the time. I love him. He's awesome, and he's still my guy." Left tackle Trent Williams said Burford wasn't alone in dealing with post-game malaise that filled with personal regret that extended deep into the offseason. Trent said, "I'm happy that he's handling it like a professional and trying to take the silver lining. I think we all dealt with that. We all dealt with the depression after the game. I think if you played in the game, there were going to be plays you wanted back." Still, when it comes to Burford's NFL career, a redemptive next act isn't obvious. He missed training camp after suffering a broken hand in the second practice, and his injury opened the door for impressive rookie right guard Dominic Pooney to become the season opening starter. However, we've seen how things have changed. There's a little more in this article, but that's kind of all what I wanted to get into regarding Burford. What's your take on that, Mike? What do you feel after?
it's good. It's kind of like peeking behind the mask, getting into the psyche and the mindset of the player, and it's cool. I still would be, a little taken aback by him still calling it a blessing, but I do understand what he means by it. It's the biggest chance to learn from a huge mistake, right? But it's good to see that he feels like, all right, now there's no such thing as a moment too big. You learn from your mistake, and it'll never happen again. And that's what this Niners team has been all about. The only person who can't seem to have and adapt this mentality, it's going to sound crazy, is Kyle Shanahan. I feel like all players on this team learn from their mistakes. We saw Steve Wilkes get criticized over and over early on. Even he said, all right, fuck it, I'm coming downstairs. Y'all don't like me up here in the booth. Y'all think it's going to be something different. He came down on the field his first game down there and had the best game of his 49ers tenure, right? Like even the defensive staff and coordinators are like, all right, I'll learn from my mistakes. I'll learn from the errors of my ways. Kyle seems to be the only one that just doesn't quite get it. I don't know if it's like this silver spoon mentality, if it's like this prodigal son type shit. I don't know exactly what it is, but everybody seems to have this mentality, and that's what you want in a locker room. You want to know that we just won't make the same mistake twice. And that goes back to what we saw in this last game, right? The 49ers had this one drive. It was actually their one touchdown play that wasn't the free play, I believe, where it was like they just third and long, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. They converted all these things, and Niners like, okay, we're putting the kibosh on this. And they made immediate in-game adjustments, right? We are not going to make the same mistakes over and over. And that's what you want to see from a team. If you're watching football and your team just keeps doing the same thing over and over, there's nothing more frustrating as a fan watching that shit, right? Like, it's the definition of insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over and expecting different outcomes, right? It drives people crazy, insanity. So it's good to see that these players have that mindset, and that's what I want to see. I want to see that more from all the players.
And by the way, Steve-O brought up a great point. He also saved a pick six. I don't know if it would have been a pick six, but it definitely would have been intercepted. That trick play where, they threw it to McCaffrey, who threw it across the field to Jennings, or vice versa. Threw it to Jennings, who threw it across the field to McCaffrey, who ran it in for the touchdown. I'm forgetting the player. Was it Bolton, maybe? Was in prime position to intercept that pass. And Burford came running down the field and knocked him out, allowed McCaffrey to catch the ball. Yeah. And run it for a touchdown. So great point, Steve-O. That was a pretty good article by Eric Branch, and it was nice to kind of get that insight. I think that Burford could be in the 49ers' future on the left side of the line, perhaps when Trent retires. I don't know. Like you said, Mike, he's more natural. He did play at UTSA on the left, and the 49ers drafted him, and they're like, we don't care. We want you to play on the right. And then he struggles, and they're like, he's trash. Well, maybe you're trying to fit, a square peg into a round hole, and you're upset when it's not. But let's get back to tomorrow's game. That article came up, and I had to share it because I thought it was a good insight. The 49ers defense, we did talk a little bit about Sam Darnold. You're not too worried about him. Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the league, and I don't think it's close. They asked him if he could take anything away from how the 49ers defended against Garrett Wilson. And he gave, some compliments, but then ended it with, respectfully, I'm not Garrett Wilson. How worried are you that Justin Jefferson is going to go off tomorrow, Mike?
It depends on what go off means, right? I think Justin Jefferson is going to get his. I think the Niners get out to an early lead, and then it's going to force the Vikings to start throwing a lot. I know we're not quite to the prediction section yet, right? But the Niners get out to a double-digit lead relatively early. I think by the middle of the second quarter, the Niners have a comfortable, double-digit lead, and then the Vikings are going to be forced to throw. And what do you do when you have to pass? Right? We saw Kirk Cousins do it while he was there. It's not just an indictment on Sam Darnold, but you throw the ball to your best player. We've seen Justin Jefferson will that Vikings team with Kirk Cousins to a win. Overtime, you guys all remember that game from. Was it last year or the year before? It was a primetime game. I forget who they were playing against, but it was like a long 4th and something. And it was like, like the game's on the line. Was it the Bills?
Bills.
The game is on the line. They're about to lose it. And it's like, forget it. And they were like, what was the mentality? And both the coach and Kirk go, just throw the ball to your best player.
Throw it up.
Yeah, that's going to happen. So Jefferson will get some production. That doesn't mean that they're going to win. That doesn't mean that he's going to dominate, so to speak. If you're a fantasy football player, you might walk away and say, oh, my man got off. He did his thing. But you have to look at things in totality, in the grand scheme of things. They're not winning this game. They are not winning this game tomorrow. So I don't care what the lines say. I don't care what any site your reading says. The Niners are not losing this game tomorrow. So it is what it is. And Justin Jefferson will be productive. He will produce. But I just don't know to the extent of how much. I don't think he's going to walk away with 150 yards. He might get 90-something yards on like 8 or 9 catches, right? Like if you're averaging 10 yards a catch for a wide receiver one, that's not a good game in my opinion, right? But the stats and the points in fantasy might say, oh, man, he got 20 points. Cool. Yeah. Have those 20 points in a loss. Have those 20 points in a losing effort, and everybody will understand when the Niners walk away with the dub in this game.
All right. And it kind of goes back to that mentality of like, oh, they let a receiver go off. So what? Does it matter if Justin Jefferson has 130 and 2 touchdowns if the 49ers win by 2 scores? Like, I don't think it does. I think the 49ers are more than happy leaving Minnesota with the dub if Justin Jefferson goes off, but that's it. If nobody else can go off, then the 49ers aren't really that worried about it. And I think that the secondary the 49ers have is the best they've had, arguably under Kyle Shanahan, definitely much improved from last year, and we don't even have Hufanga back. We are starting George Odom. I would say that's kind of their weak point of the secondary. I'm not too thrilled with him. Hopefully we get to see Mustafa get involved until Hufanga gets back, which I believe he was officially doubtful for tomorrow morning is what the status was. But I'm excited to see this defense go against Sam Darnold, somebody they're familiar with, somebody I don't necessarily have too much confidence in, and see what they can do out of it. Sam Darnold had an interception last week against the Giants defense. So I think the Niners defense are definitely going to feast on him. Were you surprised the 49ers only got 1 sack last week, Mike? And do you expect that to change at all tomorrow?
I was not surprised. Aaron Rodgers has one of the fastest releases in the NFL. He knows that when the pressure's coming to get rid of the ball. And I don't know if you guys saw the stat, but Aaron Rodgers had the fastest time to throw of all 30, I think it was 34 quarterbacks that ended up playing last week, maybe 35 or 36. But there were a lot of backups that came in and all throughout the week 1 events. He had the fastest time of release of all of them. I think it was like 2.3 seconds. And it's impossible to get sacks if a guy's getting rid of the ball like that. That's a veteran out there. That's the mental wherewithal to live to fight another down. You don't want to take a loss, so just throw it away or throw it up or whatever type of thing. So no, I wasn't surprised with that at all. That does not mean that the defensive line didn't do their job. In fact, it's kind of proving the point with how quickly he was forced to get rid of the ball at a consistent pace. If that's the average. Think about that. That's not the fastest time that he had to get rid of the ball. Definitely wasn't the longest. That's the average of how long it took him to get rid of the ball. So if you're going to play like that, the defense isn't going to get a ton of sacks. But they were all over Aaron Rodgers in that game. So, no, I wasn't disappointed with the output. I will take games like that all year long if that's what it is. I don't care if we finish the season, guys, right now we're on pace for 17 total sacks. Think about that for a second. If we finish all games at the end of the season with 17 total sacks and no quarterback had more than 2.5 seconds to throw the ball, the Niners were dominant on the defensive line. They were absolutely dominant, and you look back to the year, I think 2011, 2012, when it was the Justin Smith and Alden Smith year. Ahmad Brooks was out there, right? The 49ers defensive line dominated. They did get a lot of sacks because teams were forced to try to make a play at a certain point. It's like, guys, like once you get to the second half of the season, teams can't afford to just say, okay, we got to live to fight another down. But early in the season, that's what it's going to be. There's more games. There's a lot more season left. We're not going to live and die here right now. So let's go ahead and get out of here safely. When teams' playoff hopes are on the line, when the numbers start saying, hey, if you lose this game, you got a 12% chance to win, teams will start holding the ball longer. Teams will start forcing plays, and that's when the sacks will start to rack up. So this is a long game. This is a marathon, not a sprint. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, very good point. I pulled up NFL's next-gen stats since you brought up the time to throw. According to them, Justin Herbert was the fastest with 2.73, but sorry, there you go. Jaden Daniels, sorry, I had unclicked it, was the fastest, 2.35, but Aaron Rodgers was 0.12 seconds slower.
Oh, okay.
So very, very
My
fast.
apologies.
if you see where Sam Darnold was, you're going to go down, down, down.
Going down, down, baby. Your street in the Range
2.91.
Rover.
So
there you go. Almost 3 seconds.
Yeah, almost 3 seconds, which definitely is noticeable when you're out there on the field. I mean, think of how many times a defensive end goes half a second too slow from swatting the ball out of a quarterback's hands. It makes a difference out there. So I would expect the 49ers to get some pressure, get home on some pressures tomorrow. Historically, Sam Darnold tends to hold on to the ball a little longer. I think last week was just a bit of an anomaly. It is kind of like, how much do you really take out of that when you're facing teams? I would imagine the Saints fans probably feel the same way. How much do we take out of us whooping up on the Carolina Panthers? How much do the the Viking fans take out of whooping the New York Giants? We have a question from Big Daddy Niners, Mike. Do y'all think we'll ever have 2 backs and 4 wideouts? Like, do you mean out there at the field at the same time?
No, that the numbers don't work for that. That means we got 12 men on the field because you got 5 linemen and the quarterback. So that doesn't.
Unless you mean
up.
The other, we've had two backs out there at the same time. Our Debo and CMC have been in the backfield. Juice and I mean, I guess if you count Juice,
but not with 4 wideouts.
No. So I'm talking one or the other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we'll see. So we talked about offense. We talked about defense. Special teams. Do you expect a Jake Moody marathon or feast to continue? What do you expect from special teams?
I don't want to disrespect Brian Flores at all. I'm expecting another 6 field goal showing from Moody would be silly and irresponsible. I don't think Flores is going to quite do that. I think the Niners get into the end zone a little bit more. If you were to tell me if the Niners have another 8 scoring drives and ask me to give you the numbers for it, it's not going to be 6 and 2. It's not going to be 6 field goals and 2 touchdowns again. If it's another 8, I expect it to be closer to 4 and 4, maybe 5 touchdowns and 3 field goals this time around. I just think that the Niners have a lot more time to prepare. Kyle's now like accepting the responsibility of, all right, no CMC, let's go out here and do this. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's going to be that. But no, I don't think that you guys should expect Jake Moody to go out there and have that same kind of production. Not that he's not going to be good. I think he can walk away another game with 100% success rate. You know what I'm saying? But definitely not the same output.
Yeah. And by the way, they are in a dome, right? Minnesota, their stadium is indoors, so that benefits well. That bodes well for Jake Moody
Exactly.
and the Vikings kicker too. I forget who it is, but yeah, Scott, we did talk about this earlier. Kyle is as an OC/HC is 1-9 versus Flores teams. I wouldn't take too much away from his time as an OC. A lot more goes into that, but as an HC, I think that is a meaningful stat.
I mean, it's worth calling. It's still the offense, right? The offense versus that defense. So it's still worth mentioning in it. So I understand exactly what Scott is saying here. But the truth of the matter is this: his time as an OC didn't have this many All Pros on the offense. I don't care how you try to shake it up. Yeah. I don't care how you try to shake it up. So it's not going to be that. And there was a comment from Terry on 17 sacks. I want you to keep it in context, buddy. Don't sensationalize what I was saying, please. I was just saying, like, that's what we're projected for based off of one game so far. Like, if you were to exacerbate it throughout the 17-week season, I don't think that's the case at all.
By the way, we have talked about, it seems like the 49ers are switching their approach from coverage to coverage from pressures, right? The way they've drafted, they finally went away from the defensive line in the draft a little bit. And the high sack totals we've seen their Super Bowl years didn't translate to a ring, because what good is it if there's no holding being called in the most important games, right? So maybe they're thinking we should try and focus more on the secondary and allow them to win the game for us, be the most focal point of the defense. So I wouldn't be too surprised if we see a reduction in total sack numbers this year. I wouldn't say 17, but I think we're not going to see whatever we had last year or the 2019 year. We got a super chat from our guy Scotty D. I see peeps saying revenge game for Sammy. Dumb take. Left for $10 million. Not bad to sit in SF. Maybe revenge game for Brock, the fierce competitor, to carve the secondary. Kittle has a career game with his family in the stands. That is an interesting take. People are saying this is a revenge game for Sam Darnold. Yeah, I agree. Come take $10 million to sit behind Brock Purdy and kind of PR wise revitalize your career to be coach under Kyle Shanahan. You can't really ask for more as a backup. I do think they probably told him, hey, we don't know what Brock Purdy's elbow is going to look like. We don't have too much faith in Trey Lance. If his elbow's not healed, you could come in and start week 1 for us. And that's probably why he signed with the 49ers last year. Excuse me. But thank you for the contribution, Scotty. Okay. Anything else I didn't talk about in this game, Mike, that you're looking forward to or keeping an eye on?
Yeah, no. So the other thing that I want to watch out for is the kick return. I want to see who they have back there. They kind of experimented a couple of times. They rotated some guys back there. Now, I know that there has to be 2 people back there, so it depends on the direction in which the ball is kicked. I do want to see how that plays out and who they decide to put back there. I would have to imagine that Debo doesn't go back to return kicks at all in this game. With him, I think Debo is going to have to be used more as a pure wide receiver in this game. So I want to see who they decide to put back there. I know Garindo is going to have – I'm hoping Garindo will have a bigger role, but maybe we still can see him out there as a kickoff returner for the 49ers. I don't know who's going to be the person on the other side. Am I wrong, but was Juice the guy on the opposite side?
He was. He definitely was. Forgive me. My fucking calf is cramping.
You got a cramp? You got a cramp? Oh, man. Charlie horse or something. I don't know. Oh, man. How does that happen sitting still? You're not even walking, dude. What are you doing over there?
My calves are unbelievably tight, and I noticed my chair was going down, so I was going to step up to update, and right when I kind of flexed my leg inward, it just
got it. Send a text to the missus. Have her bring you some pickle juice real quick. Swallow some of that,
pickles.
Man.
I will throw up the second you bring a pickle near me. Bananas are
bananas, sodium. Yeah, you got to do something for it though, man. The salt and sodium and pickles and sunflower seeds. That's why a lot of sports people use sunflower seeds on the sideline. People think it's just something to chew and do. No, it's because it reduces cramping. So you got to get that out there, man. Make sure.
There's that clip of
Scott's funny. I like this guy. Scott is funny.
I'm not sure which. I don't follow baseball, but there's like an Asian baseball player, and he's having a banana, and the reporter goes, "Why are you having a banana?" He goes, "Because monkeys don't cramp." And that's what I'm thinking right now. Yeah. I'm sure the chat knows what I'm talking about. And Pterodome, yes, the smallest of muscle movement can activate cramps. Thank you. I just don't want to see Debo back there returning kicks. I thought when the 49ers had Garindo return that kick versus the Raiders, it was kind of like, all right, sweet. We got our kick returner in Garindo, and we have our punt returner in Cowing. We saw Cowing returning punts. He looked like a natural, but we didn't see Garindo. I want to say the only time we saw Garindo out there, he didn't even actually play because they took a timeout, and then Mason came back in and Garindo went out. So hopefully we see Garindo out there. He's faster. I think that he makes more sense returning kicks than Debo does. I get the reasoning behind it, but at the same time, it's like, just please let the faster guy take the kicks back. Okay, let's get into our predictions, Mike.
All right, let's do it, baby. All right, I'm going to go for the offensive player of the game. This is going to be a game where the Niners can really kind of just step back and play their style of ball, which includes a lot of running. While the low-hanging fruit is going to be Mason, I'm going to take that away. I'm going to say Brandon Ayuk not only has a bounce-back game, but comes out as the dominant force. There's something about going against what some people perceive as the number one at your position on the opposite side where it brings out the best in you, right? I don't think anyone thought that Wilson was the number one wide receiver in the NFL. Brandon Ayuk didn't really rise to that occasion, right? But he was out there. He looked a little winded at times. I think the Niners put him through some grueling practice this week, and I think it pays off. So I think that he's going to come back, and he's going to say, hey, I know that that's Justin Jefferson over there. I know that he's one of 4 guys making more money. I'm sorry, he's 5. He's one of 5 guys making more money than me in the NFL right now. I want to show you guys why I am worth this contract. He's going to go out there, and he's going to show the world that the Niners did not fuck up. They did not make a mistake by giving me this contract. And if you want a stat line, I can give it to you. But I got Brandon Ayuk.
Oh, let's hear it. Let's hear the stat line.
All right, here we go. Brandon Ayuk is going to finish this game with 7 receptions, 127 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
All right.
7, 127, and 2.
Okay, let's do it. Chat, comment your offensive and defensive predictions in the chat.
You know what? Let me go ahead and let me put that in the live thing so I can come back to it. 7, 127, 2. There you go. Let me go ahead and put that out there so that everyone can see it, and I can come back to this later on when this all over.
7, 127, and 2 for Brandon Ayuk. Okay, for me, Brandon Ayuk can't have a good game without Purdy having a good game. Give me Brock Purdy, his return to Minnesota. I think he is going to redeem himself for that game he had last year. And I say redeem kind of lighthearted because he did have the concussion later in the game. But I'm going to go Brock Purdy. I'm going to say 23 of 29, 310 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
310, you said?
310.
Hold on. So 310 out of 23?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, that's absolutely do it. That's only 13 yards of reception. Oh, let's get it, baby. Let's get it, baby. I like that. I like that a lot. Let's go, baby. Come on. Let's go.
Let's do it.
That's only 13 yards of reception right there.
Possible. Very possible. We got some predictions in the chat. Kittle over 100. Kittle 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Give me another Mason plus Kittle game. I love it. Defensive MVP, Mike. Who do you got?
All right. So let me just get this out the way really quick because Matt has not made it to the show yet. We know Matt's player is going to be Nick Bosa. What is it? 3 sacks, a forced fumble, a scoop and score, something like that. He
something
does
crazy like that.
Yeah. So let's get that out the way. My defensive player of this game is actually going to be a safety. I do think that they're going to be forced to throw the ball a lot. I said it that the Niners are going to jump out to a comfortable lead midway through the second quarter. So that means that they're going to have to start passing it around a lot. I'm going to go with the young Jair Brown. I'm going to give him not 1, but 2 interceptions in this game. I think that he's going to, if you count assisted tackles, he's probably going to have 7 or 8 tackles also. So 7 or 8 tackles, counting the assists with 2 interceptions. Jair Brown, player of the game for the 49ers defense this game.
Damn. All right. I like that. Daniel Garcia, Lenore with a pick. That's a good one as well. I am
Daniel Garcia, by the way, you got to stop. You just lost the fight, bro. You got to stop. You got to focus on one thing at a time, big dog. It was not your day. So
yeah. How about the Seattle game with 2 safeties last week? That was hilarious, and they still won the damn game.
Crazy.
Ridiculous. Okay, I am kind of struggling between Diamador Lenore and Leonard Floyd. Obviously, Fred Warner is like the gimme pick. He had an amazing game last week.
With the forced fumble, punch out.
I'm going to go Fred Warner. He returns to the scene of the crime. His first ever game was in Minnesota. I'm going to go Fred Warner. 10 tackles and an interception. I think he's going to have a hell of a game. I think this 49ers defense is just going to make Sam Darnold look like the New York Jets, Carolina version of Sam Darnold. And it's funny to say Minnesota version. It's been 1 week. Like, let's just relax, pump the brakes. They played the Giants. It's nothing crazy.
Can you please emphasize that, guys? It was the fucking Giants for crying out loud. Like, let's be clear here. The Giants starting quarterback is not the guy they even want starting. Let's keep that in mind here, okay? Now, while Malik Neighbors did have the best rookie debut for all rookie wide receivers this past season, let's not this past draft, let's not hype them up. Let's not make it seem like the Minnesota Vikings went out there and dominated a team that is even expected to make the postseason, right? Like, the Giants are probably going to be picking top 10 again this year.
Top 5.
From your lips to God's ears. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think that we should sit here and try to put them on the same scale as the San Francisco 49ers. It was the New York football giants. So let's stop the hype. Yeah, they're on a high right now. They get to go home. This is their opening game debut and all that stuff, and they're going to be hyped. They're going to be feeling it, and they're acting like, oh, you guys saw what we just did, pure domination. Yes, but there's context to that. The Giants don't have what the 49ers have, not even close. And there's two things that travel well in the NFL. It's defense and the run game. And the Niners dominated with both of those last week against an Aaron Rodgers-led team with plenty of star power on both sides of the ball. Listen, it's not going to be the same. So let's not act like the Giants are going to be the scale in which we have to judge these Minnesota Vikings.
And Daniel Garcia makes a great point. Trent and Debo didn't play last year in that game.
Exactly.
And they still only, lost by a hair. By the way, say what you want about, it was Aaron Rodgers who was out of football for a year. He looked rusty. That Jets defense has some dogs on it. Like, that was still a top-ranked defense. And the 49ers were out there looking like a practice. He was out there playing pitch and catch. So, the Jets and the Giants aren't on the same level, and the 49ers and the Vikings aren't on the same level. Their wins should be judged accordingly.
If anybody out there thinks, back to Kenny's comment that you just took off, if anybody out there thinks that the Vikings are better this year than what they were last year, you were sadly mistaken. Sam Darnold is not Kirk Cousins. And those linemen that they replaced the people who left with are not the same. They're not on the same level. Don't do it to yourself, guys. Don't do it to yourself. I don't know if there's any Viking fans watching right now. Sorry. Enjoy the high while you're on it. Talk your shit today. Talk your shit when the kickoff happens. But when that clock strikes the quadruple zeros, reality is going to set in. It's going to be a long season for you guys over there in Minnesota.
Agreed. Okay. Final score predictions, Mike. Chat, please comment your final score predictions as well.
Ooh. All right. How do we do this here? Double-digit lead in the second quarter. They're going to start passing a lot. Niners are going to run the ball. It'll be closer than what we want it to be, but I still think the Niners win comfortably, meaning there's no real pressure at the end of it all. I'm going to say the Niners get another 30-burger here. I'm going to say 36. I'm going to go 36. That's a real strange number. That actually involves a lot of field goals, doesn't it? It doesn't matter. Yeah. I'm going to say 36 to – I'm going to say 24. I'm going to say 36-24. Wow, 36-24. I think they get some garbage time points. I think that, like I said, they're forced to pass the ball. And I think that the Niners put their secondary defense in. There might be some pass interference plays on some deep shots down the stretch and give them some advantageous field position and things like that. Yeah, 36-24. Niners win by 12.
Scott Broyle says, I take 100% credit for people finally noticing the Midwest curse. I've been preaching this gospel every time we travel to the Midwest for 5 years. Time to finally break one of these streaks. That's right, man. That's right. And we got another super chat from our guy, Scotty.
Let's go, Scott, man. Super chat champion of the show today. Let's go, baby. Come on,
Appreciate this show. No fake smart talk. Good balance between fandoms and keeping it real. Really appreciated your Pure Soul show, too. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. Thank you very much for tuning in, man. We hope to bring you that. There's a ton of, I know, autocorrect, don't worry about it. A ton of these shows out there we're sitting up here and talking about how smart we are, and I can give you the stats and this and that and this and that. It's like, just relax, man. It's football. Let's talk about football. We're no experts more so than the
watch more film.
Yeah, exactly, right.
I hate people like
the guys with the sauces out there talking about, this person's telling me this. I'm hearing this guy from this. This person's going to do that. It's football, man. Let's just talk some football. Let's not take it too seriously.
Right. Meanwhile, if you guys really did watch these shows, you guys would have known that Christian McCaffrey wasn't going to play in the first couple of games because we've been saying, yes, we've been saying it for a while. If you guys were tuned in and tapped in and paying attention to what we've been saying, we kind of alluded to for a while now that the Niners aren't being forthcoming with the severity of this Christian McCaffrey injury. We told you guys that they were downplaying it for a long time. There's just some people who just don't want to admit it. So it is what it is. We are where we are, but we're here. And last week showed that the Niners do not depend on one running back. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. By the way, I don't think this is more of a Madden curse than the curse of having 400 touches last year. And being, what is he, 30 years old or how old, however old McCaffrey
No, he's
is?
only like 27. Christian McCaffrey's not old.
Okay,
He's
being
still in the prime.
But 400 touches or however many touches he had last year was an insane amount for any running back to
28.
take, right?
I apologize. His birthday came in June. That's right. He's 28 now.
28. So I think it's just more so the curse of overusage the year prior. It unfortunately is bound to happen. That's why we're all hoping Kyle Shanahan spreads the ball around in the backfield a little more and doesn't run Mason
into the ground. Let's talk about this really quick, Zach, because I don't know if you've been trying to avoid it or not. There's a series of questions that viewers, faithful, have been asking themselves, and people out there have been doing their little they've been on their soapbox about. So the questions are, do you think that the 49ers knew about Christian McCaffrey's injury, the severity of it? You even asked, you kind of alluded to it early, like, should they have just done this earlier? I want to know how you think the Niners – what do you think of the Niners' knowledge of his injury at the time of the extension, right? So Christian McCaffrey did not show up. Go ahead.
Let me get my final score prediction out because I haven't given
Okay,
that.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
No,
I'm
you're
sorry,
good. I'm going to say 31-17 Niners. Okay, please, go ahead. Did they know about it at the time of extension?
Yeah, so Christian McCaffrey held out. I don't know if people remember that. It wasn't as loud and as boisterous as those of Trent or Brandon Ayuk, right? But he still did hold out. He wasn't reporting to anything without the contract restructures and all that. And he got what he wanted. He got what he wanted. Do you think the Niners knew about it at the time of negotiations, the injury? Do you think they knew about the significance of it? And do you think the Niners kind of got took in this, right? Is this one of those things? There are a lot of people who say that Christian McCaffrey kind of beat the Niners in the negotiation table, so that's why it took so long to give Brandon Ayuk what he was looking for. It was the Niners' way of saying, hey, we're not going to fold, we're not chumps, players can't hold us hostage type talk. There was all of that going on during these negotiations around the 49ers for the big three, and I'm saying big three is in Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, and Trent Williams, right? Let's talk about this for just 2 minutes really quick if you got time. How do you think the Niners fared in all of this? What do you think their knowledge was of all of this, and just your overall thoughts?
It is interesting because, by the way, Steve says, did he hold out? I thought it was the wedding. That's held
what
out.
They blamed it on.
Yeah,
he did not show up to mandatory
that was
stuff.
The reasoning, and it was just earlier in the offseason, so it wasn't really, or in the preseason, I guess it technically would be offseason / preseason. It wasn't really that obvious, right? Because there's not a lot of activity going on. But he didn't show up. It's interesting because the injury, according to Kyle, happened last year in Washington. According to Kyle, it was a calf injury that happened last year when they played the Commanders in Washington, which I think was like week 16, I want to say, right? Late last year. But it was reported as a calf injury up until about a week ago, right? Or a week and a half ago. Then it became a calf / Achilles injury. And then it was like, oh shit, okay. This is more serious than just a calf strain, right? Which is kind of what it had been reported as through July and August. And Kyle had said, we're holding him out of or he's not probably going to miss all preseason, but he should be good to go by week 1. I think.
Wow. It was week 17. No, good call.
Week 17.
I didn't think it was that late. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very late into the year. That's right, because there's 18 weeks now. I think that they had an idea, but I think him not being around didn't give them as much insight, obviously, than they would have had if he was there every day practicing, being looked at by the medical. So perhaps they did get got.
Are you saying that Christian McCaffrey knew of his injury and then just stayed away so that they couldn't evaluate
I don't know if about that. I don't know if it was all that. But
come on, baby.
The fact that he wasn't there allowed that kind of ambiguous unknowledging to occur, right? Like, you don't know what you don't know. So if he came in dressed in jeans and a shirt saying, let's negotiate a deal, obviously they're not going to say, okay, well, let's get you in some pads and have you do a physical and a workout. They know what they have. It's Christian McCaffrey. He's already under contract. But I also want to say, I don't think freaking knew of the severity of it, because he was talking as recent as like yesterday that he intends to play Sunday, and he said last week that he intends to play. Kyle said if this was the playoffs, he'd be playing. So I think, and by the way, before you go, there was a reported setback Saturday morning, I believe, or Friday morning. There was a reported setback where he slipped at practice or something, and that was an increased severity. That increased the severity of the injury, and that's when they were forced to make a decision.
I digress. So he did practice. Was he padded practicing?
He was, and Friday, I believe, was the first time that he did not practice after, in some capacity, or at least show up. Friday was the first time he was not visible to the reporters at all since he's been on the injury report. And may I remind you guys, he's been on an injury report going back to even before Kyle Shanahan was required to disclose these injuries in the offseason. Every fucking media call began with Kyle saying, this person's injured, this person's injured, this person's injured. And by the way, Christian McCaffrey's dealing with a calf injury. So it's not like it was this giant surprise come Sunday, right? And we talked about it a little bit where the Niners should be investigated, this and that, which they were investigated. And I don't understand what people think. When somebody's fucking questionable for like 7 weeks straight, right, with the same injury, and then he doesn't play, why are fans like, this is ridiculous? They need to be investigated. They misled everybody. They were telling you since July, this dude has an injury. Don't get me wrong. It changed from a calf to a calf and an Achilles, but it's related. It's all related. And tendonitis doesn't just go away. Anybody that has any sort of tendonitis, the doctor's like, you got to sit on your ass. You got to sit on your ass, ice it, rest it, elevate it, Kinlaw. And there's nothing that he can do aside from rest. That was why I kind of opened up the show with saying, should they have done this last week? They allowed him to practice another week. And reportedly, like I said, yesterday morning, he had a slippage. His leg reportedly gave out, and he slipped. And then there was the severity of the injury increased. And then they were forced to make a decision.
The 49ers are smart, man. The 49ers are smart. This is all because of the comment that Mason made on that field. What they didn't want to happen was the league find out that they knew the severity of this injury and weren't reporting it all along. So now we have to go out there and do this. And that's why Mason's demeanor was the way it was. Now it forced them to drum up how significant this injury is. It forced them to put Christian McCaffrey on IR because they never wanted to do that. We want to keep teams thinking that Christian McCaffrey is going to play every single week. That's exactly what this was. This whole slip and fall thing that came out of nowhere. Were reporters there? Did anybody see this outside of 49ers, people wearing red and gold, or front office people?
The only person I saw it from, and take it with a grain of salt, was Marco Martinez. And I know people are going to say, oh, he doesn't have any sources. He had the Ayuk extension before anyone else. So I'm giving it a little bit of credibility. I don't think he's full of shit like some other people that maybe try and get the sources game going. But again, you're free to believe what you want to believe, people watching this. Maybe you don't believe Marco Martinez. He had the Ayuk extension. I think he even had like the Aaron Donald retirement like days before it was announced. So I tend to believe there's some credibility there that he did slip and fall. But again, nobody saw it, Mike. I didn't see it. Eric Branch didn't see it. Nick
that
Wagner
goes to my
didn't see
point.
it.
That goes to my point. You get the word out there somehow. Yep. Give people enough benefit of the doubt. The league did investigate the 49ers based off of Mason's comments and found that there was nothing to hold them against. Kyle went to the podium immediately and said, I never said that. I didn't tell him that. Maybe that was Bobby Turner trying to hype him up and tell him to be prepared. Yeah. I might have told him that, you're probably going to get a little bit more carries because we're going to be seeing how McCaffrey feels. But I never told him. I didn't say that, right? Like the cover. You know what I'm saying? The damage, what's it called? Oh, there's a phrase that I'm looking for. But they were doing crisis control, so to speak.
Right.
Like they were trying to fix it all up right away and immediately. And now all of a sudden they have to come out and say, because here's why. The Niners knew they couldn't hold this up for another 3 or 4 weeks. They couldn't just keep saying he's questionable. No one goes from questionable to out and on IR.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it before? Have you
No,
ever
I have
seen it
not.
before? We've had a guy named Jason Verrett on this team. And he was never questionable for that long and then put on IR. We've had a guy named Jerick McKinnon on this team, and he wasn't just questionable, not doubtful. Right? Not doubt. We're talking about questionable. We're talking about game time decision. That's what they were leading us to believe.
I mean, it was 4:00 on Monday when it came out that he was out. When the inactive list came out, that's when we found out he wasn't playing.
Yes.
So.
And then IR.
It seemed like they had no intention
from a controlled environment, from damage control. That's it. Thank you, Chrissy. They were doing damage control immediately after Mason made his comment. And that's why that young man was up there at tears, because he forced the Niners to make this move with that one comment. That one comment. Now the Niners got to put out this fake injury that happened during practice, and they got to put him on IR, and now all of a sudden they can't do it anymore, right? That's the backlash from this comment. And that's the Niners doing damage control. Thank you so much, Chrissy. That's exactly what I was talking about right there. That's it right there. Here's my hope, though.
Oh, go ahead. No. Go ahead, please.
Here's my hope. I don't know what the backlash is going to be for Mason. I don't know how much of a doghouse you can put your best running back option in right now. I have no idea. But there is some sort of discipline that is happening behind the scenes for Mason for that comment.
You think?
That kid was in tears. He was holding back tears at his presser. The 49ers removed his presser from all the pressers following the game. He went to the podium. He spoke. He spoke for 3 minutes, and they removed the whole presser. The only way we knew that it even existed was because of the people that were there recording it from their phones. That's the only reason we even knew it existed. The video went from public to private immediately, and then they released the chopped up version of it. The Niners don't do that. The Niners don't do that. It's all extra income. Leave the full one out there with the gaps in between, and then chop it up and post both of them, and you get hundreds of thousands of views on both of them. It's all extra income for that team and their YouTube page. They purposely deleted all the raw footage, chopped it up, and released the chopped up footage only. Chopped up footage only. That kid was beat to tears after the biggest game of his career. There is some sort of back channel punishment that's going to happen for Jordan Mason. What it is, I don't know. But there was something. And that's why, because now the Niners knew, now we have to put Christian McCaffrey on IR. We have to come up with some injury that happened. We have to facilitate this and get our way through this so the league doesn't fine us. Because I don't know if you know, misreporting injuries is there's 3 different punishments that the league can impose on you. It's financial fine, it's draft picks, and it's suspension of coaches if you misreport those things.
But the Niners, in order to misreported it?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think they knew all along. We've been saying it. We've been talking about it for weeks here. I've been saying don't expect Christian McCaffrey to play the first 2 weeks. I've been saying that. I've been saying it. Don't expect him to do it. They did it on Matt, what the fuck are you doing on the chat, not in the video, dude? What the fuck are you doing?
He's probably not home yet.
What are you doing? Join from the fucking car. Your car drives itself, motherfucker. Hold the shit up and go to sleep. Like, what are you doing? Get your ass in here. What are you doing, dude?
I am in the camp that they didn't misreport it. If somebody tells you they're questionable and then they end up not playing, you're a fucking idiot if you bet $1 million on them playing, right? But
I love it.
But I think you have to subscribe to the fact that an injury didn't happen or a slip didn't happen Friday morning to increase the severity of the injury. You have to believe that in order to believe that they misreported it.
A slip. This guy's been practicing in the NFL for 9 years now, and all of a sudden he fucking slips, right? Like, cool.
Well, I'm with it. The claim is his Achilles gave out, and that's why he slipped. It wasn't just like a Reggie Bush against the Rams slipping on concrete with cleats on.
Yeah.
It was a slip that happened because his Achilles gave out. The NFL did investigate, and they found nothing, no wrongdoings, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with you that Mason will be punished. I think maybe they talked to him and said, you don't have to answer any of these questions. Say you don't know. Say all you knew was...
So that would take a guy from his high to tears? Tell me what you think they said to him to make this guy fight back tears.
I think he was terrified that he's probably going to say something wrong, which is, I believe, his very first answer, right? When did you know you were starting? And he goes, see, that question right there is why I'm so mad and why I don't do press interviews or press conferences, because I'm going to say something, y'all are going to misconstrue, you're going to take my words a different way, and I'm going to get in trouble. So I think that's why they probably just told him, be careful of what you say because we can get in trouble. And I think maybe he's not the most media trained guy. And he was like, fuck, no matter what I say, you guys are going to take something and run with it another way. So he just didn't want to answer anything at all. I thought it was one of the worst interviews I've ever seen.
He got
not Mason's fault. Not Mason's fault. Just the whole circumstances that went into it was horrible.
He had the top 10 medallion put on him by Debo on ESPN. Then he got the beads lay from Hufanga on ESPN. Then walking to the locker room, him and Trent saying, that man's a dog. That man's a dog. The reporters are questioning him. He's on a high. He broke down the team after in the locker room.
By the way, all work, no luck. That's a nice chant. I like that. All work, no luck.
I like it. But then he's broken down to the brink of tears after the biggest game, and you think that all they said to him was, hey, be careful what you say?
Well, what
you
do
think that all they said to him, I'm telling you, I don't know the words, but I think they told him what the punishment was going to be. You're not going to start next week. I'm telling you guys, I don't think Mason starts.
Bullshit.
Hear me out.
Another back didn't even get carries.
Hear me out. I'm not saying that he's not going to lead the team in rushing attempts or he's not going to be the team's leading rusher. I'm saying that you're never going to start for the 49ers again because of what you did, or you're not starting next game because of what you did. I wouldn't be surprised if on the very first play he's on the sideline and Debo's in the backfield, or Garindo's out there, or something else. Listen, y'all can mute me. Y'all can be mad. I have never in my entire life seen a guy go from the highest of highs after having his highest carried, his highest amount of attempts in his career, college and professional, and then be resorted to tears, and at his highest moment. You can call it bullshit, Matt. I see you out there. Mike's tripping, Chrissy. I agree. I know it sounds crazy, but you have to tell me what words broke this man down to the brink of tears when he went out there. You got to tell me something other than, hey, you got to be careful what you say.
2 years ago, 2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago, this man signed as an undrafted free agent, right? He was like 4th or 5th on the depth chart. I could be wrong, but I think that was when we had like fucking Wayne Gallman and Breida and all these backs that were still there, right? Coleman. I don't even remember what it looked like in 2022. He worked his way up. Still was 3rd on the depth chart last year. Only became 2nd when Elijah Mitchell had his knee injuries reoccurring, right?
He was 3rd on the depth chart this year. Christian McCaffrey, Mitchell, and then him.
And then Mitchell goes on IR, and Mason comes in. He's probably thinking, I was this close to not making this team, right? Now I have an opportunity, and I fucked up. I said the wrong thing, and now I'm getting scolded. There could be a case of imposter syndrome, like I don't really feel like I'm supposed to be here. I don't want to fuck up my chance, right? You know what I mean? Like, he's surrounded by all these all-pros, the Avengers of the NFL. He's an undrafted running back, and he's probably thinking like, yeah, I just had an amazing night career-wise, but if I say the wrong thing, there's no reason why I still can't be sent to the bench and Garendo starts next week. I don't necessarily think they told him you're not starting, but the scenario you just laid out isn't too crazy for me to envision with Debo in the backfield and Mason on the sidelines. I guess we'll see. Ian Sharp, by the way, says he's only going to get 27 carries this week. He said 28. I think that's funny. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really do think that the question was.
You still didn't answer my question. You danced around my question.
What's the question?
I respect that.
What did I dance around?
What could they have said that reduced him to tears from his highest of highs?
When you're that.
Look at Miss Debbie's comment. Look at Miss Debbie's comment right here. They broke that young man. They broke that young man in a matter of seconds from breaking down the team huddle to walking out to the podium. They broke him. Someone out there has to tell me something that the Niners or Kyle Shanahan or the PR guy or John Lynch, someone has to tell me what words they said to this young man that reduced him to that level of disparity. He was fighting back tears at that podium, bro.
very easily could have pulled him aside and said, it's not your fucking place to talk about who's starting, who's not, when you found out anything. Keep that in mind moving forward, or there will be repercussions, and then sent him on his way. I think that would have been enough to have a player of his draft status, which still comes into play, be like, fuck.
Or lack thereof, yeah.
Now I have to go out there and face these exact reporters that just got me chewed out by my coach and by whoever the hell may have talked to him. Jed, Parag, John, Kyle, whoever went and talked to him. It wouldn't be Parag. Kyle, John, Bobby Turner, perhaps. I don't know, right? But I still think this whole thing is a bunch of bullshit because, Mike, let me ask you tomorrow. If you say Mason doesn't start, right? And if somebody asks you or Kyle, when did you know Mason wasn't going to start? And Kyle says, I knew Thursday. Does that mean the same thing that Mason isn't going to play at all? No, it just means he's literally not on the field the first snap of the game. So when Mason says, I knew I was starting on Friday, why does that automatically mean that the rest of the 80 snaps of the game, or however the fuck many the Niners had, Christian McCaffrey wasn't going to be on any of the other 9 of them?
Because if Christian McCaffrey is healthy, he's fucking starting.
Well,
Mason and McCaffrey are not on the same level. Wait.
Healthy.
But let me answer your question, right? It's one thing to know you're going to start. It's another thing to say Christian McCaffrey is healthy enough to play. If he's healthy enough to play, he's going to start. $20 million a year says that. Like, what are we talking about here? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying.
Even if CMC was on a pitch count, he's going to start the game. Even if he's on a pitch count. There's no logical reason for why the Niners would let someone else start and tell them on Friday you're going to start. Hey, Christian McCaffrey is going to be on a pitch count. We're going to see how he feels during the game, but you're going to start. That conversation doesn't exist for an undrafted free agent.
They tell him we're going to play McCaffrey on third downs. We're going to play McCaffrey in the red zone, but the bulk of the carries you're going to get. Now, I get it. It still would make more sense that if he's healthy enough to play, he's healthy enough to start. But it's not unfathomable to me that Jordan Mason was told, you're starting, but you're going to have split some carries with McCaffrey, and we'll see how he feels. That's not unfathomable to me. And I think people conflating the two is where all of this bullshit arises from to begin with. And I think it's a total mistake in people's judgment for trying to say that by Jordan Mason being told that, which Kyle denied. Again, I will say that he never told Mason he was starting on Friday. Bobby Turner very well could have told him, read the fucking tea leaves, bro. McCaffrey hasn't practiced in 7 weeks fully. He's been on an injury report. You're probably going to start. So you better take this shit seriously and prepare as if you were the starter. The very first question, once he gets off there smiling, beaming on his face, when did you know you were going to start?
They told me Friday.
Yeah.
I think it was Friday. Now, I like the whole I think it was Friday because Kyle said all week, we're preparing for Monday, so we're off by a day or two. Like, we don't really know what day is what. And that's why the NFL can't really find the 49ers for what happened. Because of that right there. Kyle's been saying it for all the pressers leading up. He did 3 public pressers leading up to that Monday night game. And every time they asked him about something concerning dates, it was, what's today? With it being Monday, we're off by a game. We've got the extra practice or the extra day off, so we're all lost. That's why the NFL couldn't find them, because the NFL has to hold them to their words. And the team will submit that as evidence, like, hey, we didn't know what day was what. Yeah, we heard him say Friday, but we don't know that for sure. Oh, get the file. Stop it, guys. That's not what stop. That's not what we're saying at all. I don't, never mind. I'm done. I'm not going to keep going. I just don't know what could get somebody from this high up all the way down to reduce the tiers. I just don't know how that could happen.
I just really
I just don't get it. I don't get it. And you guys sitting here trying to sell me on this whole, oh man, it was just, hey, be careful what you say. It's not your job to report that stuff. It's not any player's job. We've seen Mason at pressers multiple times already. We've seen Mason go out there and talk about buying the jugs. He was showing all of his fronts. All the teeth were out. He was smiling. He's standing upright. His shoulders are nice and back, and he's talking. He's smiling about all this stuff that's going on. And then all of a sudden, he looks like someone just beat him on his back with a baseball bat, and his shoulders hurt. And he's got his head down. He's doing this. He's wiping his eyes. That right there is why I don't like talking to media. That right there. That exact question right there is why y'all telling me that it's because someone said to him, it's not your job to talk about injuries. It's not your job to talk about player status. Get the fuck out of it. That's not enough. That's not enough to reduce a guy from his highest of high, his career high to tears. That's not enough.
Matt, what's your take on this? Thank you for joining.
First of all, sorry I'm late, guys. I had to work. Still in my nasty ass clothes from the hospital, but that's all right. I agree with Zach just because he's, they said Christian McCaffrey, just because they said, well, I agree with Zach in that just because Christian McCaffrey isn't starting doesn't necessarily mean he can't play. But I also agree with Mike that if he's healthy enough to play, he's going to play. I think.
Wait. Going to start. If he's healthy enough to play, he's going to start.
He's going to start.
You agree with that?
I agree with both of your points because here's the thing. I think that Jordan Mason actually did misspeak when they said, when did you find out you were starting Friday? I think he misconstrued what Kyle Shanahan told him. Kyle Shanahan probably told him, be ready to start on Friday because they didn't know if Christian McCaffrey was going to go. Like, hey, be ready to start. And probably told him that on Friday. Then when Christian doesn't go, then in your mind, going back on it, looking back on it, it's very easy to leave out the be ready. And it's like, oh, no, I'm starting on Friday. That's what Kyle Shanahan told me I was starting on Friday. Whereas in Kyle's mind, he's like, I didn't tell him he was starting. I said, be ready, right?
Okay.
Be ready to start. So I think there was a miscommunication there. Second, some people are that sensitive that if you give them an ass chewing and they think they fucked somebody over or they think they fucked over the team, that they're really empathetic people that will take that very personally. And it can fuck up your day. I just got feedback at work that wasn't true about me, and it fucked up my day. And it wasn't anything super crazy. Somebody was just like, oh, yeah, like somebody said that you're like one way to like the higher ups, and you aren't that way to some of the other staff. And
but did it reduce you to the brink of tears?
Yep.
This kid was fighting back tears, man.
No, it did. It really did. It really did. Because one of the things that like that I pride myself on being a genuine person. I tell the truth. I'm like upfront with people, whatever. So for somebody to question like my character in that way, that definitely like was that I took that personally. So for him, if he feels like, yo, I'm all about this team, like I'm getting an opportunity, I want to help them, let's not forget, like, he's again, hugging and kissing his mom before the game. He obviously has like strong family values. He's like really, into that sort of thing.
He's a good kid.
He's a good kid. He's a good kid. Came across as a good kid, right? But also came across in the interview as a little media naive. So if he thinks that he made a mistake, I mean, how many times do you see people make a mistake and they like, they slap themselves in the head or they do something like that? You know what I mean? And then that turns into something else, right? You ride the high of highs. And of course, like you don't want to hear, the last thing you want to hear at your highest moment is any form of something, right? It's always like, who's the killjoy? Who's the party crasher? Who's the Debbie Downer, right? Even if it's something as simple as like, hey, we need you to button it up and like make sure that you clear stuff, or like, hey, we're going to have to do some media training with you or something like that. He goes from like feeling like he did this great thing to all of a sudden you're getting this like negative with it. And that will suck the wind out of your sails super quick. So what I want to see is how he is going forward. So I don't necessarily disagree with you, Mike, that like I don't want to say that something didn't happen. I'm sure he got his ass chewed. But when I look at what Jordan Mason did with the media training, and then I compare that with what Ayuk did with, yeah, I'm not signing that contract. Yeah, but I'm not going to Cleveland either. Yeah, I'm not going to New England either. Like, fuck y'all. Like, I'm not doing any of this shit. And it got to the point where the 49ers had to send him the 5-day letter to, like, either you come back to practice or you can't play football this year and we'll toll your contract to the next year and you lose an entire year of accrual. To get to that point, you don't think that that was more of an irritating thing? And my thing with you saying that, though, like, Mason will never start this and this and that, at the end of the day, this organization is about winning football games.
But
none, if Jordan Mason is the best player to help them win football games while Christian McCaffrey is out, that's what they're going to do. They're not going to sabotage a Super Bowl team.
I agree.
Right? If Mason is the best back, if that it just over one because again, it's not like Jordan Mason. I could see if this was a habit, right? You don't want players making habits of fucking up and over speaking in the media or whatever. This kid said one thing. I refuse to believe that a player's coach, a coach that is loved by players as much as Kyle Shanahan is, to the point where he's invited to weddings. Nah,
Stop it.
he's
Stop
invited
it.
to weddings.
Kyle is loved by the guys that he puts under his umbrella. Let's not pretend like there's not players that have some animosity towards Kyle on this roster, and
Where
then
are
there's
they?
players that absolutely love. What are you talking about?
Where are they?
We have heard. Okay, maybe you guys haven't heard.
Okay.
I have heard stories about guys who absolutely love Kyle. Kyle is a guy's guy. He's a player's guy. And then there's the opposite side where once you're in Kyle's doghouse, there is no in between. And all of you guys have heard about Kyle's infamous doghouse. Let's
Sure.
not pretend that it's all across the board that everybody is beloved by Kyle. Kyle himself has gone to the podium and said, "I'm an asshole on game days." I have had to
Sure.
I have had to step back, and I've
Sure.
had to apologize to people following game days because of how I am on game days. Kyle
Okay.
is not beloved by everybody. Now there are certain people under that umbrella. I will agree with you on that. But I did want to say one thing before you get away from the whole the Mason comment and all that.
Well,
stuff.
let me finish my thought on that.
Okay,
you can
go ahead,
disagree,
go ahead.
whatever. But he's considered a player's coach, and I refuse to believe that a player's coach over something that's not an effort thing, that's not a whatever. It's a mistake, and I know that Kyle doesn't necessarily. So Kyle has said over and over again, "I don't mind if you make a mistake. I mind if you keep making the same mistake. You need to learn from your mistake." I don't think that they're going to axe the kid over one media training mistake, which is so easy for professional athletes to do.
Yeah.
Right? Debo could be up in a club doing this thing. He can Photoshop himself in a Cowboys uniform. Cool. That's all business, right? At the end of the day, Kyle's like, "No, it's Debo," right? Ayuk has been in Shanahan's doghouse before. We know that. In his rookie year, he was in Shanahan's doghouse.
Mm-hmm.
But then he goes through all this contract stuff, and he's out there and he's playing like nothing happened, right? So then one media training, and you're just going to hammer the kid that just essentially won you your week one game and punish him going forward for a team that's bitter off of a loss in the Super Bowl and needs all of the horses that they can get. So I just don't think that that's the thing. But anyway,
I agree with you in the sense that you said the Niners Super Bowl window was this year. Christian McCaffrey's going to miss multiple games now. The Niners aren't going to do anything stupid by not playing Mason with this window here. I agree with that. However, both of you guys just got done saying McCaffrey could have not started the game but still got some carries, right? So the Niners can still not start Mason and still use him as the bell cow. And what I'm saying is, as a guy who worked his way up from an undrafted free agent on the San Francisco 49ers to get some starts, looks really good on his resume as he enters free agency, which, by the way, is at the end of this year.
Here's my question to you. Why would the team go out of their way to punish him like that?
Because
something that wasn't going to cost them anyway.
I got you. Because the NFL had to investigate based off of his comments, and the team could have lost picks. The team could have been fined money. Yes, Matt, what are you talking about?
That investigation lasted 6 hours, dude. It came out the next day.
I know.
It's because because the Jets or some other team lobbied the NFL to do an investigation. That's the only reason why. He was hold on. Let me finish. Don't interrupt me, please. I'm gonna finish. In the famous words of a certain political candidate, I'm speaking. No, but Christian McCaffrey has been on the injury report for a month. The NFL has a deadline to announce inactives. The 49ers announced Christian McCaffrey inactive by the deadline. They were under no obligation to say his playing status as long as he was on the injury report prior to that deadline. So that it didn't matter if they told Jordan Mason he was going to start. They hadn't ruled him out. They weren't required to rule him out.
I agree. Now, here's where
does the investigation come?
Because you're focusing on the outcome of the investigation. The fact that there was an investigation means that the NFL could have found the 49ers guilty of some arbitrary or minuscule bullshit, misreporting. The fact that Mason made that comment is what sparked the investigation in the first place. And it could have cost the Niners X, Y, or Z. And that's why they laid into Mason. What? Matt, they investigated. You said so yourself. It's all documented. They investigated it.
Have you ever heard of swatting?
Like I swat flies.
No, swatting. That's where somebody calls in to a local police department and says that you're committing domestic violence against somebody in their house. You heard a bunch of noises. You heard somebody shouting. They said they had a gun. And the cops show up at your house. They break down your door. and they detain you until they investigate the situation. You're not going to get arrested. You're not going to go to jail. You're not going to serve any sentence because there was no crime committed. You can investigate all you want. People are investigated for murder that are innocent. Do they go to jail? Sometimes, yes, because whatever. But like in this instance, all I'm saying is the 49ers had him on the injury report. They reported him inactive when they were required to do so. Beyond that, they are not obligated to share any information prior to the specific deadline set forth by the collective bargaining agreement and the NFL. It doesn't matter. Another team might have been like, hey, there might be something here. Please go ahead and look into it. And the NFL, out of obligation to the 32 owners that make up that binding collective bargaining agreement, they would be obligated to, under certain subsection of the CBA or the team agreement or the charter or whatever, would be obligated to do an investigation. But the fact that it took them like a day to do it lets you know that there was literally nothing there. If there was something there, it would have taken a lot longer than a day, because we've seen it with tampering. We saw it with tampering, and it took months for Cousins. It took 2 months for the Kirk Cousins tampering to result in a loss of a draft pick. The NFL, after 1 day, said there was nothing wrong here, which means they looked at everything. They said, he was on the injury report. You told us there's nothing there. I don't see how you could see it any other way than that. So
are you telling me that no one's ever been arrested during a swatting event? What if they found something? What if they did find something? Is it possible that they could find something?
Okay, but that's like what we're playing.
I don't know what swatting is. No, because you introduced the swatting thing. I'm asking you, what if they found something? You're not going to get
arrested for the swatting, for whatever the complaint was against you. You're not getting arrested for that thing. Now, if you have something else in there that's ancillary, right, that could happen. But then if that's the case, then the 49ers deserve to have some sort of penalty if they're breaking. So
then Mason's comments threw the flag for swatting. Yes.
No, that's okay. A team is going to do its due diligence. They're going to say, "Please look into this." Like you're grasping at the most like outlier because you want to be anti-team and you want to be pro Mason because Mason got fucking boo-boo face on the stage, and that's fine and dandy. But at the end of the day, the team's not wrong in wanting him to shut the fuck up about that stuff.
Yeah, I want him to shut the fuck up too. I am pro-team in everything that I say and do. What I'm saying is there was something said to him that reduced him to the verge of tears. That's all I'm saying.
That could be anything. But you're also saying that the team is going to put itself at a competitive disadvantage to punish him. And that's like
by not starting. You don't get to start the game. It's one snap. That's not a competitive disadvantage. One snap. He can get the rest of them for the remainder of the entire game, but you won't start. You won't get to have those stats and say, hey, I started for the 49ers for 5 games last year. You don't get that stat now. All I'm saying is, I don't know what they said to him. I'm just saying it's a possibility that his comment triggered the swatting that you're talking about. And while the investigation did come back with nothing against the Niners, it still triggered the Niners, and the Niners were at risk. And if the Niners were upset that you put us under this microscope now because there was an investigation and the NFL said, hey, there's nothing here, it was still an investigation. It's all my point is, and the Niners weren't happy about it.
Why would Kyle risk the locker room like that?
With which
Why
part?
would Kyle okay, you got Talanoa Hufanga, you got Trent Williams, you got Deebo Samuel all dapping up this kid, you got Brock Purdy giving him credit, you got this and this and that. Everybody's super happy with Mason, and you're just going to shit on this kid and be like, you can't start, and be super petty like that and not have it affect the veterans and not be like, hey man, I don't know what's going on with these motherfuckers, but this isn't right. Like you think that
I hope not.
You think that the front office is going to be tighter than the boys? The boys are for the boys, man. The boys have each other back.
Mason better start tomorrow. And if he doesn't start tomorrow, I don't want to hear shit about a trick play. I don't want to hear that it was Kyle trying to blow the top off on the first play. I don't want to hear none of that shit. If he, for some strange reason, doesn't because I can't. Here's why I'm saying the start thing. This is why I'm harping on the start. I don't know what else they can take from him. They can't fine him. They can't take away a game check. I don't know what kind of punishment there could be to reduce him to tears. And that's all my point has been all along. I don't know what they could have said to make him that upset.
Different people are different.
We don't know Mason.
We don't know exactly. We don't know Jordan. Maybe Jordan Mason's dad yelled at him a lot and it really upsets him, or it's triggering for him, or whatever. And he's sensitive to that sort of thing.
From the field to the locker room?
And we know Kyle can get the red ass.
No, Matt's saying in his childhood he was yelled at a lot.
In his childhood.
Therefore,
if his dad hammered on him about a lot of shit and he's sensitive to that, and Kyle just laced into him with like a profanity laden tirade, like we know Kyle is character. Yeah, and then he goes back and it reminds him of when he used to get in trouble with his dad, and that triggers something in him. It could be something as simple as that. I'm saying that I don't want to attribute to the team doing something vindictive and petty and heinous when I don't know the psychology of a kid. You know what I mean?
Can someone other than me please respond to Ellis's comment?
That's what we've said this like 10 times. We've said this like Mike's just saying.
But it can't be me.
Ellis, I understand where Mike's coming from. The first player to touch the ball doesn't necessarily mean that player is the starter. That's the macro level. The actual on the ground level is the first player to touch the ball started that fucking game.
That's it. Period. There's only one starter at the running back position for a football game.
Exactly. It doesn't mean that you're when Christian McCaffrey comes back and can start, then all of a sudden Jordan Mason, who was starting, is not going to be starting anymore.
Mike, I think your theory would lend a lot more credence if it was somebody like Brock Purdy, right? Somebody who we've seen very stone-faced, very like professional, and if he showed up to a press conference and was like on the brink of tears and really upset and being, in my opinion, very unprofessional. I thought Mason was unprofessional. I understand it because something happened, right? Well, what did he say? The first question he gets asked, and that right there is why I'm so mad. Have you ever seen a player answer a question?
I think the unprofessional. Yes, I don't think
Marshawn Lynch.
I mean, that's a bad example because Marshawn Lynch unprofessional as fuck.
He said, "I'm here, so I won't get fired."
He couldn't even make it through an NFL broadcast without saying the F word one time. I remember that.
So the standard set by other 49ers players, we've never seen a player in this team react and speak to the media in that way, right? It was almost like watching a movie character break the fourth wall, in my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, I've heard players talk to the media like that. I have heard players.
No, not on this team, but other players, yeah, for sure.
Let me see.
I can't think of anyone in recent.
I mean, I've definitely heard. I mean, depends on who's asking the question. If it's Grant Cohn, I've definitely heard players get hella salty with Grant Cohn.
True. I mean,
Javon Kinlaw almost fucking strangled his ass last year.
Eric Armstead, I've seen it from players, but that's towards one specific person.
Right.
I haven't seen anyone be like that towards, and I think it was Mayoko. Like no one's ever talked to Mayoko.
And maybe that's something that caught. Well, first of all, I want to say I've never heard Mason speak at a press conference. I don't know if I haven't been paying attention.
What?
Or he doesn't.
That's not true. We talked about the Jugs machine on this show, on this program. That was based off of a presser.
Press conference. Okay.
Yeah. That was based off of a presser.
I didn't know it was a press conference either.
Post-game press conference. I've never heard him speak.
I've never heard him after a game before.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never heard him in a situation where he had just went through a something that would bump his adrenaline and really like get him going or whatever, right? I don't know him. I think that a lot of the team perceives Matt Mayoko to be a lot of us do too, a very team friendly guy. And I think that question probably set him off because it felt like it was like a dig. However, Jordan Mason did air his team out by answering that question. I found out I was starting on Friday.
Yes, he did.
Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
I mean, again, the media training, as soon as she goes, when did you find out you were starting? You go, listen, Coach Shanahan always tells us that we need to be ready no matter what happens. So I was just ready to go and this and this and that. And it's so easy to just say that. And so that's why I don't think the team is punishing him. I don't think the team, you don't expect that guy to be in that situation. So you have to have grace for when he makes a slip up because he's not media trained. He's not out in front. Brock Purdy's in front of the camera all the time. George Kittle can go out there and show a ton of personality because he's in front of the camera all the time, but he knows not to air out the team's dirty laundry.
Yeah.
Right.
And just and my last comment is he actually did say that. So I don't know if you guys watched the post game on field presser, right? It was that they told me Friday, but I've been the number one back all training camp because Christian was hurt and Elijah Mitchell was out. So I've been ready for that role in case it was my time if they called me. So he could have just not said Friday and then everything else is fine. Exactly. He could have just not said Friday. So I agree with you guys on that point.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Also, I need to go back and watch it because there's a big difference between if the interviewer said, when did you know you were starting, or when did you
those
know
were
that
her
you might
specific
be starting?
words.
Okay, but I mean, it's very easy in the moment. The crowd's out there, right? You got a whole bunch of stuff going on around you. He could have, again, I'm playing devil's advocate. What if he heard, when did you hear that you might be starting? Right? Just like he could have misconstrued Kyle Shanahan saying, hey, be ready to start. He heard that on Friday, and then he misconstrued that into, again, it's so easy, right? Telephone, tell a friend. Right, Zach tells you something, a story, right, in person, off air or whatever, and then you go to tell me the same story, and it's going to be different words, right? You're not going to tell that story verbatim. Very easy for that to happen, but that's why everybody needs media training. And I don't know. I would just say I would be disappointed in the coaching staff and the front office if there was tangible competitive disadvantage placed on the team. Whether that be not just because the other thing about it is if you're going to punish him and not starting, that also does hurt team morale with a team that actually is trying to come around like Ricky Pearsall, right? We're no longer talking about how amazing it is that Ricky Pearsall seems to be imminently returning to practice.
Yeah.
That he's actually working out with no issue and this and this and that, right? We're talking about this kind of stuff. So,
yeah. By the way, what message does that send to the team? You just had your first start, 28 carries, 147 yards and a touchdown, but we're not going to start you the next week. I think they would be forced to kind of address that elephant in the room, which is something I don't think they will want to do or have to do. But we'll see. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Who starts the game?
And we will see. And I do feel like there are enough veterans on this team that are in good enough with Kyle that would probably stick up a little bit for Mason and be like, come on, man, this ain't worth all that. And if the team then insisted on that point to prove a point, then that's when you start losing guys. Yeah. So,
Mike, I see you share that. I'm not gonna play that clip because I feel like the whole stream would get taken. But Matt, he shared the interview link in the chat.
Just so you guys can see it yourself. Go to the 29-second mark, and that's when she asked the question. But I'm done. I have nothing else. This was a really, really fun show. I hope you guys don't think I was just trying to shake shit up or anything.
No. It's a
really,
good question.
It's really good to see you, Matt. Man, I appreciate you jumping in here when you got a chance to.
Yeah, after a long day of work.
You were a phenomenal host as always. So I thank you guys both for it. My plugs are my plugs, and I'm done.
Mike, real quick. He actually, if you go watch him say verbatim, he said maybe Friday or something like that.
Yeah, keep listening. He doubles down on it and says, "Yeah, Friday."
He has to at that point, and that's a lack of media training. But at first, he says maybe Friday,
and that's why the Niners have an out because again, Kyle has had this whole what day is it? What day is it? So that's why they have an out is all I was saying. Yeah. I agree, though.
I think even regardless of what Mason says, the 49ers have been pretty upfront that McCaffrey's injured, like I said, like 30 minutes ago, going back to even before they were required to disclose he's injured. You don't have to disclose these things in the offseason during OTAs, going into preseason, and Kyle did. So the injury has been there. And that's why I think it was kind of a ridiculous brouhaha, this kind of media circus and frenzy, which, again, I don't think happens if sports betting and fantasy isn't so prevalent the way it is currently. That was kind of the main reason why people got all up in arms, right? People placed a bunch of bets. Shout out to Mybookie. They voided all of those. Some other bookies didn't. Mybookie voided all the bets that had to do with
That's why people are mad.
That's why they're mad, because there was money involved.
Fantasy football. He verbatim said maybe Friday night, something like that.
There you go.
I feel like that's pretty nebulous, to be honest. I don't feel like that's a full-on commit. And then she moved on to Christian McCaffrey must have been really supporting you, this and this and that. So, did we do offensive defensive player of the game and predictions?
We did, but please share yours.
Okay, offensive player of the game. I'm gonna go with Jordan Mason. I think he's gonna get 13 carries in the first quarter. I think Kyle's going to be like, I think Kyle's going to hear all the content creators like Mike saying, oh, he's in the doghouse. And he'd be like, fuck your doghouse. I'm going to blow that shit down. So, defensive player of the game. You already know what it is. Nick Bosa, 3 sacks, forced fumble.
Mike shared that one for you earlier.
Yeah, I'm sharing it. I'm sharing it anyway. So Jordan Mason, offensive player of the game. Nick Bosa, defensive player of the game. Final score prediction, 49ers 45, Minnesota Vikings 10. Fuck Sam Darnold. He sucks.
Let's go. All right. That's going to do it.
By the way, I saw, sorry, one more thing. I saw somebody say one of the usuals, right? Oh, watch out. This is the first time. Like, I don't want to take away from Dominic Pooney, but I don't think they faced a line like the Vikings. And I'm like, Daniil Hunter ain't there. Like, who are all these guys, man? Like, I looked at their defensive line depth, and I'm like, I've heard of literally none of these guys. So the only tricky thing to navigate is that they run a 3-4.
The Jets' defensive line is much more ferocious to
even without Hassan Reddick, it was.
Yeah. Quentin Williams is better than any defensive lineman.
Any defensive lineman on the Vikings right now. Yep. And Sam Darnold's definitely going to remember he's Sam Darnold. I love Diamador Lenore's quote where he was like, "Hey, man, me and Sam had a special connection. That dude always loved throwing me the ball." So I would love to see a Diamador Lenore pick. So sorry, guys.
No. Thank you for coming on. Thank you, Mike.
And I'll be here after the game tomorrow. We going after the pressers?
I assume so.
Cool.
All right, Mike. I'm sure the folks already know. Please let them know.
Just quick, guys, man, show some love to my guys over here. If you guys are watching from the Nothing But Niners channel, make sure you guys subscribe to 49ers Hive on YouTube. And then for those of you who have not yet joined the Patreon community, I owe you guys a big one, maybe 2 or 3 to make up for what I messed up with this week. I got my Shannon Sharp on, but head on over to patreon.com/NB9ERS. I'll make it up to you guys, I promise. All right, NB9ERS on Patreon. That's it.
I'm not even going to ask about that comment. Matt, please do the honors.
Absolutely. I'm glad you guys were able to hold it down for me while I was at work. Glad I was able to get the opportunity to come in and talk a little bit. This is going to be a fun game. We got an early one tomorrow. So be able to set your clocks, wake up early, watch some 49ers football. Hopefully we get our first win in Minnesota since 1992. Looking forward to that. So for Mike, for Zach, for myself, thank you as always. We love having you here. And until next time, go Niners.